What's up, everybody? It's the Alex Leak and Friends NFL podcast, back for another week. I'm your host, Alex Leak, and we have a very special guest on this week, legendary ball coach for the Florida State Seminoles, Coach Bobby Bowden. Thanks so much for taking some time to be on the show, Coach.
Glad to, Alex.
So you've been coaching football from 1956 until 2009. You started at South Georgia State College and ended up at Florida State Seminoles. And you were there for most of your career, winning 2 national championships. What was it like building Florida State up from the ground up? I mean, when you took over at Florida State, they had 4 wins in the last 3 years, and you really built that university, the football program, from the ground up. What was that like?
Well, I was the head football coach at West Virginia University in 1975.
Okay.
And then I got a call from Florida State about coming down there. Well, Florida State was losing games. We were winning there at West Virginia. Why would I go? Well, Ann and I decided at the last minute, let's go home.
Okay.
Because our home was in the Deep South. I was raised in Alabama along with my wife. We coached at South Georgia, and we coached in North Florida. So it was like going home. And when I came to Florida State, I did not come with the idea of staying. I thought I would go down there because the program was so low, and then renew my acquaintances and go back to Alabama where I was from. And that was my plan, but we got to winning at Florida State, and things got bigger and bigger, and we just decided to stay there.
That's awesome. Now, when you took over the head coach at Florida State, that was not your first time with the program, right? You were a wide receiver coach in the 60s.
Yeah, before I went to West Virginia's head coach, I was an assistant coach at Florida State in 1963, 64, and 65. And that's when Ann and I decided we felt like we probably needed to leave because things were not happening like we thought they should.
Okay.
And so I took a job at West Virginia as the offensive coordinator. Then the head coach left after 4 years, and I became the head coach and served for 6 years. Then down to Florida State.
Okay. Now, you were talking about your time at West Virginia. Now, things started a little rough a little early there at West Virginia, and the fans weren't very patient. What was it like getting started there at West Virginia?
Well, that was my first major job because I had coached at several small colleges where there's not a lot of pressure. But when you get into a major university like West Virginia and Florida State and Alabama and schools like that, there's so much pressure because of the media who tell everything, and if you're not successful, you really catch it. So you get checked out pretty good on how good you can take criticism.
Yeah, and you handled it very well and stayed there for a few years and had a pretty good record there at West Virginia. So then you go to Florida State, and really what really got you guys on the map from what I can see is when you landed defensive tackle Ron Simmons in recruiting out of the state of Georgia. That was almost unheard of at the time. What was that like?
There's no doubt about that because Ron Simmons was probably one of the best football players in the country during his high school career. And everybody wanted him. And, of course, it's hard to get kids out of Georgia. You know, I mean, usually the Georgia boys are going to go to Georgia or Georgia Tech. But we were able to get him to come to Florida State through a good friend of mine, Bill Franklin, who lived there in Warner Robins and who I had coached previously at South Georgia College. And Ron worked for him. And so it was through that contact I was able to recruit him to Florida State.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, everyone says college football is a lot about recruiting. So if you can get those big recruits, that's half the battle right there. Now,
yeah, that is the battle. Yeah, whoever gets the best player is going to usually win.
Yeah, well, you were also known as quite the play caller in your day as well. even as a kid, I heard people talking about you drawing up plays in the dirt, and then when you were a quarterback in college, you were calling up your own plays, and the coach was putting them into the playbook. He had never seen them before.
Yeah, a lot of that's true. I played high school ball at Woodlawn High School in Birmingham. Then I went to the University of Alabama and only stayed one semester because I got married.
Mm-hmm.
Back in those days, if you got married, you couldn't have a scholarship. So then I transferred back up to Birmingham, my hometown, went to Howard College where I knew I could get some scholarship, And of course, now is Samford University. And so I started my career there, and then it worked out, ended up in Florida State.
Now, talking about your high school days, didn't you have a little bit of a high school rivalry with Bart Starr?
Well, my first 2 years of high school, I had been sick with rheumatic fever and could not play. They would not let me do anything strenuous. And so after 2 years, the doctor said, "Hey, you're fine now." So I go out for football there at Woodlawn and play my last 2 years. Bart Starr was playing down in Montgomery, and I did not get to play against him. Our high school did later, maybe a couple of years later, but I knew Bart very close. We were very good friends, and I followed his career through the Packers.
That's awesome. That is so cool to think about the great football minds like you guys being friends and getting together. When you were at Howard College, you got Bart Starr to actually come and coach some of your players and bounce some offensive ideas off of him. Is that right?
That's funny how that happened. During the off season, Starr would come back to Birmingham, and he had a radio show. So one day I called him. I said, "Hey, how about coming over here and talking some football with me?" No, he was excited about that. So he comes over. We spend that afternoon talking football. I said, "Well, why don't you come out on the field and kind of help my quarterbacks a little bit?" He said, "Okay." So he came out and worked with my quarterbacks. And you know what? He came back every day of spring training, which probably lasted at least 2 weeks, and coached my quarterbacks.
That's awesome.
Where he and I became close.
That's so cool. Now, going back to your days at Florida State, you had plenty of job offers. You were getting Alabama, Auburn, LSU, even the Atlanta Falcons were trying to get you out of Florida State, but you decided to stay and finish what you started there at Florida State.
That's true. When you're winning like we were at Florida State, everybody wants your coaches. Everybody wants to hire your coaches or hire you. And I did have quite a few offers back in those days when we were real successful. Because my 4th year there, we went undefeated. Yeah. Well, that draws attention. And so people try to have jobs come open. They call you and say, "Would you be interested?" And I had a lot of them call me, and at the time I wasn't interested in leaving. I wasn't interested in leaving.
Okay. Now I gotta ask, what was it like to coach the incredible, all-time talented Deion Sanders?
It was great coaching him. People have the wrong idea on him, I think, in a lot of ways, which it's just because he was so outgoing. A lot of people resented it, but he was great. He was great to coach for one reason. Number one, he loved to practice. Now, usually a star, if you're not careful, they'll try to miss. Let's don't practice on Monday and don't practice on Tuesday because I don't feel like it. But he wasn't like that. He wanted to practice every opportunity he had. We let him play baseball in the spring, and I tell you what he would do. If he didn't have a game or a practice at baseball, he would come over and go through spring training, put the full pads on. Not many kids do that.
Yeah, that's awesome. That shows like his hunger, his want to always be playing and always be trying to win and stuff. That's very cool.
Yeah, that's him.
And then going to the days when you had Charlie Ward at quarterback. Charlie Ward, I didn't know quite how talented he was playing baseball, football, and basketball. But you were able to develop an offense that fit him perfectly and go on to win the 1993 national championship over Nebraska. That was quite the season, wasn't it?
Yeah, he was wonderful to coach. He was very quiet and very polite. Had a great family, and he kind of put us on the map. We got on the map a little bit earlier than that, but he put us at the top because when you win a national championship, that's as high as you can go that year, you know. And so he did in 1993, led us to our first national championship, and he was a super football player. When he went into his senior year, our man at Florida State, who was in charge of publicity, wanted to build a campaign for him. And I said, no, don't do anything. Don't you leave him alone. You might hurt him. I said, I guarantee you he will win the national championship. He was that good, and sure enough, the next year, he won it by a very high margin.
Wow, that's awesome. And that's got to really help a young player to have a coach that has that much trust and belief in him.
Yeah, it just worked that way. He didn't live but 25 miles from Florida State.
Oh, okay.
And so he was a very popular football player and still is. I think if you took all of the FSU alumni down through the years and said, hey, who was your favorite player that ever played for Florida State? I believe a majority of them would say Charlie Ward.
Nice. That's awesome. Now going to a guy that you had to game plan against. A lot of coaches probably stayed up all night trying to game plan against this guy. In your second national championship, you had to go against Virginia Tech and Michael Vick. And he was crazy. I'd never seen a quarterback like him. What was it like trying to stop Michael Vick?
I don't know if we did finally stop him, but it took 4 quarters.
Yeah.
I mean, we couldn't tackle him. He was so fast, you know. And, we had a 27-7 lead at the half, I believe. And that young fella didn't come up and went ahead of us, 28-27 second half. We couldn't corner him. And but we finally in the 4th quarter we kind of got hold of him, and he I think he was having a hard time having enough to finish the game. Yeah,
he was taking a pounding. That's one thing your team's always had was an aggressive D line, and they always got to the quarterback.
Yeah, our defense was Mickey Andrews was our defensive coordinator. Before him, it was Jack Stanton, and they were excellent defensive coaches, and they were the backbone of our team.
That's awesome. So, I mean, how do you look back on this Florida State run here from 1987 to 2000, 14 consecutive 10-plus win seasons and top 5 finishes? That's incredible.
Well, it really was, and when it's happening, you don't realize it. You don't realize it. Mm-hmm. And then after the 14th year, where you had 14, if you count the coaches' vote, we actually were in the top 4 for 14 years. But you look back and say, how in the world did that happen?
Yeah.
And of course, we eventually made a movie on it called the Bowden Dynasty. It was considered a dynasty.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and speaking of that movie, I've seen it, and it's a great movie. It's out now. For those listening, if you haven't seen it, if you're a fan of football of any level, you would love this movie. It's very well done.
Well, that's good. Thank you.
Yeah, it really shows a great outlook on your career. Now, I mean, you played and competed against some of the greatest, or mostly coached against some of the greatest names the sport has ever seen. I mean, guys like Bear Bryant, Woody Hayes, Joe Paterno, Tom Osborne, Lou Holtz, Bo Schembechler, Gene Stallings, Howard Schnellenberger, Jimmy Johnson, Frank Beamer, and Steve Spurrier. I mean, I'm sure I missed a couple names in there, but what's it like competing against some of the greatest people to be a part of the game?
We didn't actually play against all of those guys you mentioned, but we did play against some of them.
Okay.
And it was a thrill. It was a thrill because you're getting to match your team against their team, and they were all great coaches. And it was a thrill to play them, and a big thrill if you could beat them.
Yeah, that had to be awesome. One more question I got to ask you. When you were at Florida State as a wide receiver coach, you got to coach the great wide receiver Fred Bolitnikov. That had to be a treat. How was it coaching him?
Well, he was good. He was so good. You know, back then, Florida State didn't have a big name at all.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then his last year, we played in the Gator Bowl and beat the University of Oklahoma. And Fred was the star of the game. He and our quarterback, Steve Tensey, had great passing combination. But he was just a natural great athlete. We moved him to receiver, and he played wide receiver for us, and he was a consensus All-American, our first consensus All-American at Florida State.
That's awesome. All right, well, Coach Bowden, looking back on it, tremendous career, 57 years that you put into the game of football. What do you look back on your legacy as? What do you want to be remembered for in the game of in life and in the game of football?
Well, you would like all coaches, you would like to be remembered as one of the good ones,
Mm-hmm.
one of the best. You know, that's what you'd like. But you know what? That's not what I want for my legacy. I want my legacy to be that I serve God's purpose for my life.
Okay, that's awesome. That's great to hear, and you definitely did it. You impacted so many people in a positive way, and it's awesome. And thank you so much for taking some time to talk to me.
Thank you for calling. Those are very good questions you asked.
Yeah,
I enjoyed the interview.
That's awesome. Thank you, Coach, and have a great day.
Okay, and same to you here.
Yep.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye. That'll do it for this week's episode. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like, subscribe, or leave a comment. And have a good one, guys. Peace out.